sir, your access points are, I assume that that's a regional or an area for access that takes in information and then it goes to, could you just explain the difference between an access point and a relay point?
And John, if you could repeat the question in the mic.
The question is the difference between an access point and a relay point. And I'm gonna stare at Silver Spring Network for just a moment as a relay point receives information, access point gathers that information.
So a relay. Okay. I'm Tom Merrick with Silver Spring. A relay is just a repeater, so it gets data from the meters in the area and then it sends it back to the access point. The access point is the actual thing that will send all of the meter reads back to CPS Energy. So a relay makes the signal stronger in an area where it needs to make the signal stronger and repeats the signals, and the access points actually takes it out and hands it to CPS for billing.
How do you determine where the access points actually are?
That's a very good question. So how do we determine where we put the access points? We have a network design team at Silver Spring that uses some very sophisticated RF radio frequency design programs that take into account terrain, takes into account buildings and obstacles in a given geography, and this information is published by a lot of the cellular carriers and the mapping companies. We import that information, so we've got a good idea that there's a big hill here that we have to get around, or that there's a billboard, or there's a giant 60-story building that we have to somehow get around. And our software then gives us ideas where to put it. We go out in the field, we install the relays and the access points, and then we do an analysis to find out, are we missing anything? Was there a small group of neighbors in this neighborhood over here that we can't hear? And then we remediate those. So then there may be some manual movement at the end. Yes, ma'am.
In terms of magnitude, what is the difference between the radio or microwaves or the energy waves you're going to be using, or your radiation, and the Wi-Fi that we now have percolating throughout our homes and everywhere that we go? What is the difference between yours and what we are now using or exposed to?
Good question. Now, if this is a good place to address this, or?
Yes.
Sure. Do you want to address it, or you want to? Okay, so the question is, what's the difference between the radio frequency coming out of the meters that are put on your home versus Wi-Fi that you're going to find in your home, and I'll go even farther, your cell phones, your microwave ovens, that type of thing. The amount of time that these meters transmit are very, very small. In fact, if you take over a course of a day, we're less than 5 minutes of actual on transmitting. So if you're on your cell phone for 20 minutes, you're getting a lot more RF exposure than you are listening to your smart meter, being your smart meter. The other thing is, if you're watching your popcorn pop, you're getting a lot more radiation from that than you ever would, in the neighborhood of 5,000 times more than you would get from your smart meter. CPS did a study with EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute, to measure the amount of radiation for the meters that they're installing. So they had guys with very scientific instruments come out and do measurements on the equipment that you actually have in place.
Tom, are there any access points in Shavano Park?
I don't know the answer to that. I think we've got a map back here. I can look that up.
I think with regard to the EPRI study, we do have our meter operations folks who can talk more specifically about that in an individualized setting. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a point directly related to the RF radiation comment that this woman just asked about, the emission. I know it's very easy to talk about sending a signal and such, but people need to understand that this is non-ionizing radiation, it's RF radiation. And in spite of the fact that up until June of this year, CPS was maintaining that the World Health Organization says that there's no concern with that. In fact, in 2011, it was designated a Class 2B possible carcinogen, with the understanding that more studies needed to be made. Now, I noticed that in your more recent literature, you've put in a few more fudge words to qualify that there may be something there. But in fact, there's lots of information coming out just this year about potential impact of RF radiation on various kinds of cancer. Here's a collection of more than 200 scientists who study the effects of electromagnetic fields on the body, and they've gone on record criticizing the FCC guidelines. And in fact, the statement from a professor from Berkeley is that we're playing with fire. And in fact, they say there's no longer a debate about the cell phone brain cancer link. The weight of the evidence is clear: cell phones do cause brain cancer. Then here's a pilot study that was released earlier this year by the National Toxicology Program, a $25 million study in rats that is being done now by our government. And this shows that unexposed rats, that rats exposed to RF radiation similar to what we're getting now, experienced a higher form of brain cancer called glioma and schwannomas of the heart. That's a fairly rare type of heart tumor. And as I said, this radiation was not very different from what humans are receiving now. That was a cell phone study. The results were so striking that they released a pilot announcement before completion of the final study. And then here's just another one titled "Why Men Should Never Put Their Phone in Their Pocket," and I'll let you figure out the effects of RF radiation on sperm. And that might not be of importance to people who are our age, but you're talking about young children, and that is a concern. So when you're talking about sending a signal, that's a pretty benign comment, and I think it's important for people to understand this is non-ionizing radiation, and it's kind of like taking plutonium. No amount is good.
So in kind of summarizing all that, there's questions about RF frequency. We do have on our website a professor and doctor from the University of Texas Health Science Center who says that there are no health effects from the smart meter. And so I would refer you over to our webpage. Sir?
Yeah, I've been on the website and looked at that doctor's presentation. The guy's a radiologist. He's not qualified to talk about the effects of radio frequency radiation on cells. Thank you.
I'll go to the next slide. Our communication plan with our community, key stakeholders, are 90 days. We're willing, like we are today, to meet with HOAs and neighborhoods 60 days out. Our individualized communication with the customer will start with a 30-day mail out. You'll get something in the mail stating that if you have any questions about the installation, or if you want to schedule a specific day for installation, you can do so. A 7-day phone call reminding you that we'll be in the area, targeting your area for meter exchange. And I believe Quartz has built into their system a 2 or 3 day call out reminding folks that they will be in the area. We've had questions about opt-out. I want to be very clear that opt-out is an option for you if you decide the smart meter is not for you. I would encourage you to think that there are many ways that you could use the AMI meter to understand how you're using your electricity and how to manage your bill more accordingly. If a customer is proactive, all they have to do is communicate with us. I don't wish to have this device. There is no upfront cost, but there is a reoccurring $20 amount cost for, one might say, the monthly charge per meter reading. That's deploying a truck out to the field, that's having the meter read taken, that's coming back out from the field, and then doing kind of a customized billing process back office. Yes, sir.
Is that just the electric meter, or is that the electric meter and the gas meter?
That would be both if you have both.
So that's 2 meters.
Yes.
So that's $250 a month.
No, I'm sorry. So top line, top bracket, customer notifies CPS Energy prior to installation. $0.
All right?
It's $20 a month after that.
Per meter.
No, in total.
Total, yes.
CPS Energy notifies customer notifies CPS Energy after installation. If you only have an electric meter, it's $175. If you have both, it's $250. We exchange those meters out, and then it's a $20 a month charge. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. On your smart meter exchange program enrollment form, there is no box to check where people can simply say, I want to keep my current analog meter. I don't want one of your 4 opt-out meters, which are transmitting. They send off this RF radiation, and I don't want a smart meter. So tell us very specifically how a person who wants to keep his current analog meter can fill out a form that doesn't have a box to check.
If they write clearly on there that I wish to keep my analog meter, we will test their analog meter. If it is working accordingly, they can keep it. The situation is that form will be with us for quite some time. We have not purchased an analog meter in roughly 10 plus years, nor is the equipment becoming available to even maintain analog meters. It takes me back to an occurrence when my grandfather called me and told me that his rotary dial phone had stopped working. If you had to pick him up and take him to AT&T, which I did. And he said, I would like to have it serviced. He says, well, you can't, because we don't sell those anymore, nor can we fix them. So that was the first day that I learned that technology had changed in that household, and we bought him a push-button phone. So they're hard to get pieces of equipment, and we haven't purchased in quite some time.
May I make one more comment?
Yes.
If anyone would like a form, this is off the CPS Energy website that actually says you want to keep your analog and crosses off all the other information, along with a pre-addressed mailing label. Just let me know. I've got about 40 of them here.
Meter accuracy, electronic billing in effect for over 12 years. Same due diligence as mechanical meters. We do test these meters for accuracy. They're both tested by the manufacturer. And as these meters arrive on our site, we take approximately a 10% sample batch to test them for accuracy. If any one of those meters fails that test, then we send the whole batch back. People have asked, are smart meters tested accurately? I think I answered that one. The bigger question that people have asked is, will it result in a higher bill? Over time, many analog meters have slowed down over time, upwards of 10 to 20%. Without maintaining them, which we no longer can, it's really not an increase in bill, but it's a more appropriate bill capture. It's a more appropriate capturing of the usage that you're using to better reflect in your bill. Sir?
I would just like to make a comment, and maybe you'll respond to it. In the literature of the manufacturers of these smart meters, most of them guarantee 2% additional capture of energy compared with a well-calibrated analog meter. That's in the specifications of the meter.
So we don't have that in our system. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, you do. You need to look at the specifications of the smart meters that you're installing.
I think we have someone over here that can probably answer that question a little bit better.
That's right. So I'm familiar with the specifications that I work intimately with the electric meters.
Speak up, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. I work intimately with the electric meters, engineering with the electric meter shop, and I read the documentation. I read it for all sorts of reasons. I've not seen a specific reference to a guaranteed 2% over threshold. 2% over meter accuracy threshold. So the way the testing works is CPS actually has a standards laboratory, and all our equipment is compared to a standard that's referenced back to the National Institute of Standards. And so what that does is that guarantees that a watt hour is a watt hour, and every utility is kind of held to the same reference, right? So the meter shop goes out to test the equipment, and we have equipment that tests the meters, and that equipment is traceable. We send that equipment back over to the NIST lab, and they calibrate it. It comes back to our lab. We calibrate our equipment that goes out to test the meters. And CPS also serves a different function. We also serve the surrounding utilities. So we have small co-ops that don't have the same resources that we do. And so we they send their equipment to us to be calibrated, and we provide a service for just.
It's not a question of the accuracy of the meter. I understand everything you said about the accuracy. I'm sure the meter is accurate.
Okay.
It's the way the smart meter measures electricity is different from a well-calibrated analog meter. It captures more kilowatt hours because it measures differently, and it measures hundreds, maybe thousands of times a minute.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. And anyone can go on the internet, look up the exact meter that you guys plan to put here in Shavano Park. The Gear Landis, is it?
That's
or General Electric, and you can get the specification sheet off the internet, and it will tell you what I just said, that it is going to capture 2% more energy, a minimum of 2%.
Okay. So we have drive-by meters and we have smart meters. And I like to tell customers that the meters are the same. The metrology board that actually does the measurements for the power used by the customer is the same metrology board that's in the AMI meter. The only difference is the smart meter has a communication module that reads the metrology board and sends that information back to CPS Energy. So in essence, they're all smart. We just have a different way of reading the meter.
But that's not the same as the metrology of the original analog meter, is it?
That's right. The analog meter uses magnetic fields. But they're still held to the same test equipment that we test every meter with. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, sir, question.
So, in essence, what you're saying is that our old meters have become worn out and don't function in the way they should be. Therefore, it reduces the recording of our wattage or energy use. So when we get rid of the old meter that doesn't work well now, you're not charging us enough. Now you're going to have a new meter that's going to charge us more because it runs better than what the analog meter does.
In essence, yes, we've seen quite a few meters come in from the field that were running quite slow.
Okay, now is this similar to realizing that our water system here is different than the cities, which you have some relationship being a city-owned entity, but our water like tripled with the smart meters that the city of Shavano Park put in. That went wild. So is this going to happen the same thing with your meter? Are we going to have triple the bill that we have now?
It should not. It should not. I'll give you an example. This is my own example, again, from my own experiences. Watches. The older watches used to have to send information because it would just not click fast enough per second, per minute, per hour. And you go to a digital watch and it is recording as long as that battery life sustains it, it records very quickly. Just use that as an example. But no, essentially it should not, but we are seeing a range of 10%. And I think it would be fair to a customer to know that their utilities being more efficient with the resources that they have, and that they're recovering the kilowatt hours that are being used from any customer in the most appropriate manner. Certainly.
Would you back charge a customer if their old meter does not register properly using this new technology?
I'll answer this question in two different ways. We do have a standard to back charge customers in certain cases if their meter is dead. If your bill per month is only $8.95, and it's been like that way for a year, and you're using your electricity, then that's a dead meter. The meter has malfunctioned. We could go back and develop an algorithm for a 6-month charge.
How do you figure that out?
It's based on the prior year usage. So far, we have not gone back with an analog, the switch from an analog to an AMI tobacco. Can I go to the next slide, please? As we talked about today, there are devices both on the electric and gas. The electric device records data every 50 minutes and then instantaneously sends that to us 6 times a day. The gas meter records data hourly and sends it to us one time a day. There's a battery in that gas device that we want to extend its life, So instead of sending it 6 times a day, we're going to send it once a day. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'd like to open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
Just a comment more about the security of the information. In the last couple of years, I've got 4 notifications of security breach. One from Susan Combs, the comptroller of public accounts, that my information had been hacked. I've gotten 3 of them from the Office of Personnel Management Federal, that they got hacked and my records were taken. So personal identifying information is no longer so personal to me anymore. And then I attended a graduation from a cybersecurity class where the Texas director of the NSA told about a competition that DOD sponsored to try to hack 5 secured non-classified websites and offered rewards for doing that. And he said that the first website was hacked within NSA encryption, was hacked within 13 minutes of the competition beginning. So saying that it's secure is in fact basically saying it's not as insecure as unencrypted, but anyone, if there's a desire to get it, they'll get it. So that's just my experience with secured websites with the state, the federal government, and then the NSA talking about their secured website. So got it, it's encrypted. That gives us a little bit less insecurity, but it's certainly, I don't think in good conscience you can say that it is secure and the information will not be available.
So while our partner from Silver Springs makes his way up here to talk a little bit about encryption, I will say that we do our best and we've been ahead of it. We have a very elaborate cybersecurity team that works at CPS Energy. We have also a very elaborate physical security team that works on securing our resources. From a secure standpoint, the data that's being relayed back and forth is merely a meter number and a consumption usage. So it doesn't have any personal information, doesn't have your bank account, doesn't have your name, and your address. But could you speak a little bit about the encryption level that we have?
Yeah, sure. So Silver Spring has been in business for over 10 years now, and we run some of the largest utility networks in the world. One of the things that when we started out as a young company, we thought security needed to be number 1. Meter companies, their job was to do metering and provide billing. Our job as a communications company is to make sure that the networks are as secure as possible. To your point, is anything ever secure? If you pull the plug and you put your stuff on a bank vault and shut the door, there's a good chance you won't get hacked. If you open the door to breathe, there's a chance that somebody's going to probably talk to you and get information. You may, if you want to talk about that after the fact, I'm happy to get into some details. But we go to great pains to make sure that the data that we collect is heavily encrypted and secured between points, meter number and usage, and any alarms that may come up. So if your meter's been tampered with, or if there's a problem with the meter fails to some degree, that kind of information comes back to CPS Energy. We don't know your name. From my perspective, we don't know your name, we don't know your address, we don't know what you're watching on TV, nothing like that. All that information goes back into CPS through multiple firewalls, multiple permissions, and as you said earlier, there are other permissions involved that means that if I'm a meter reader, I can't go in and shut off your electricity just because I don't like you. I have to have permissions to do that through the system. So when I log in, there's only certain things I can do. So Silver Spring has done a great job at that. We've got close to 25 million electric meters installed throughout the world. We do penetration testing. We hire companies outside of Silver Spring to come in and hack. And then we remediate those hacks. We've also got a customer consortium that has their own security group that they go out and they hire their own independent hacking team to do penetration testing. So it's not the fox watching the hen house per se. We get that information back, we immediately remediate, we fix code, send it out to our customers like CPS Energy, push that code down. If it's at the meter, if it's at the access point, if it's at the head-end system, that gets remediated as quickly as possible.
Yes, ma'am.
Coming back to the RF radiation and this sort of benign signal that goes out, I have read that it happens in a pulsed format. It's the RF radiation goes out as a pulsed format, and that it can go out upwards of over 100,000 times a day. And although each pulse, each packet of information is very, very short, that in fact the FCC guideline is exceeded when those pulses go out, and the FCC guideline is probably 1 million times higher than it should be based on the effects of RF radiation at the cellular and the subcellular level. So I'd like you to comment on that, please.
So I'm not familiar with the documentation that you're referring to. I'm going to look at our team. Maybe we can have this discussion at the subject matter table expert or subject matter expert table. Or do you have the data?
So we did commission have EPRI come by do a RF radiation study. We did have the Electric Power Research Institute commission a study with our smart meters, both in continuous transmission mode. So what they did was they got with the manufacturer and they had these meters and they turned on the transmitter, full power, 24 hours, right? And they tested the RF radiation. And I carry this with me, but if you read the documentation, then you'll see that everything was below the FCC. There's a couple of commissions, a couple of regulatory bodies that kind of provide these limits for the maximum exposure limit. And the one with the lowest was the International Commission of Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, and it actually shows that it was never exceeded that threshold. But the information is available on the CPS website and the EPRI website.
From what distance was the measurement made? Was it in contact with the meter?
Oh, that's right. So they measured at various distances. One, continuous transmission mode, it was actually in contact with the front faceplate of the meter. And it was, I believe, 25% of the ICI&RP exposure limit. And then they measured at 3 feet, and it was 13%. And as you know, the further you go away, the lower the power density level from the transmitter is. Yes, sir.
Is this a one-way system or is it a two-way system? Can you control my meter?
The question is this a one-way system or two-way system?
Can you control my meter?
In situations where a customer doesn't pay?
No?
Yes.
No?
In a good standing customer situation?
Can you control
Absolutely
my
not.
meter? Yes, no?
Can you explain what
It's
you
a simple
said?
question.
Can you program it?
Can you explain what it means by control? You know, and can you clarify what you're trying to say by
Now,
control?
can you reduce my power?
No. No.
If you're having a brownout somewhere, and you decide that one way I can level this in a grid is to cut this group, can you do that?
Well, we're a member of ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. In accordance with their standards, if for any reason we start to lose power plants across the state, we have to keep a certain frequency. We, as part of that participant group, have to shed load.
I understand that.
In that situation, we wouldn't look at meter specific, we'd be looking at circuitry out of substations.
Okay. That's that.
The lady, woman in the back hasn't asked a question yet.
In your literature, you talk about prepaid options and fixed billing, et cetera. When I lived in Houston, I had what I felt was an advantage with average billing, which it was averaged over the past year, and I liked that feature very much. Could you explain more about your payment options?
Certainly, so the question is about payment options. So currently, irregardless of the meter type, we do have a budget payment plan, which levelizes your bill the same dollar amount across 12 months. If you used under, then you get a credit. If you used over, then we readjust next year's 12 months to reflect that recoup, plus what we think your usage is going to be. Now, different payment options. We've got a lot of people moving into San Antonio. We're probably installing, last number I heard was around 400, 500 meters a month. It could be a little bit more. So With that, you've got young professionals that are coming in, you've got people that are on fixed incomes. You could put, and I'll use this just as an example, I could put $100 down on my bill, and using the AMI technology, using the old portal website, you could go down and track. I'm 15 days through the month, and I've got $25 left. Well, okay, can I conserve myself a little bit more, or should I go ahead and make plans to make an additional payment now? Put a little bit more money down. I hope that answered your question, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Good morning, my name is MJ Smith. I'm retired Southwestern Bell, 30 years. My husband worked at Western Electric. And those old rotary phones are going to last till Jesus comes. And I venture to say that there may be some of our Shavano Park residents that still have those rotary phones. And you want to talk about security? There was nothing more secure than an old landline after we got off the party system. What do they call that? Party line. And so, my question is, I understand progress. The only reason we got rid of those rotary phones in the Bell system is for sales. And you went to the Princess phone and all of that, and then touch tone, and I can tell you the whole history. But, and it's the same in phones. We went from rotary, but then we went to the big box cell phone, then the flip phone, then the Android, then the smartphone. Well, there are people that I know that love the flip phone, and they're never going to go to the smartphone. They love it, it works, it's great for their usage. So my position and my question is, why is there, it feels like a shove to me, I'll just use myself as an example, that I feel that I like what I'm using now, my old analog, and I don't want something new. And I don't want to pay for what I don't want. Now, I've been having an electricity bill. I'm 62, so, I don't know, 50, 60 years I've had an electricity bill. And I've been paying the charge for my meter to be read in my electricity bill, along with all the other fees. So, I just wonder, well, my position is, and my question is, that why is it not more easy for people to keep what they like and what they want, more of a capitalistic, if there's two dresses at Macy's and one is on sale and one is the better dress, let the people choose what they want. And I like this more on a personal level because it's also unique to each of our particular uses, especially, even in the electricity model. But I'm just using the phone because you went to the phone earlier. And I think it's a good analogy because it's all about progress. But as I said, why isn't it an opt-in rather than an opt-out? Like everybody that wants it, get the form here, sign up, click online, you got it. But the rest of us that don't want it, we're fine where we are, we've been paying our electricity bill. If I got an $8.95 bill, I would be calling you. I know that's not right. I'm on the payment plan, I love it, it's an average, 12 months, it's fabulous. But I think it would be more customer friendly, more customer service friendly, which is really a lost art in this age of technology, to really let the people have what they want and pay for what they have and not pay for what they don't have. So has there been any entity, like we're a municipal here, Shavano Park City, has there been any municipal or any HOA or anybody that has been able to opt out and have their members not pay the fee? That's my question.
So the question is, has any community or HOA been able to opt out without the fee? The answer is no.
No individual?
No.
Okay, has it been litigated?
It has not.
Okay, thank you.
But what we'll do is what we do is we follow the PUC's commission, Public Utility Commission's guidelines on the AMI meter is your standard meter. And any deviation from the standard that cost shall be recovered by the customer requesting something different. And that's the personalized $20 per month fee to come out and read your meter and do back office billing specific for that meter.
I think her question was, how much are we paying right now per month already?
It's built into your rate structure.
And so it's how much? What I'm saying is, the $20 is already being paid for us in the rate structure.
No,
are you going to change the rate structure to reduce our rates because we use that?
No. So let me make sure I have your question correct. Where is I was referring to the meter reading function as it stands today via the AMI technology is built into our rate structure. The deviation from having a customized meter read is not, so that cost must be recovered by an individualized basis. And that's the $20.
Okay, once again, the rate structure today includes the meter reader, your contractors that go out and read the meters. Okay, you're paying them, and it's in the rate structure. So now you're not going to pay them anymore, but you're asking us now to add an additional $20 income to you because you're saving money by not sending meter readers.
Well, there are going to be some efficiencies gained, and what we've done is we've established a team specific to find what those efficiencies are and repurpose those dollars into other areas of organization so we can maintain our rates as low as possible. We've actually transitioned about 30 meter readers into different positions, probably better positions, and so we aren't trying to lay off anybody. We're certainly trying to repurpose our meter reading.
So when these smart meters are installed, the rate structure stays the same?
That's correct.
So then we're paying for the meter reader anyway? Whether we go with what we have now, we're paying for the meter reader. Now we got the new smart system, we're still paying for the meter reader, but we don't want it, we gotta pay an extra 20. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Well, our meter reading, our fleet of meter readers is down to a handful. So
that's still not answering what I'm concerned about. We're paying for the meter reader now with a certain rate structure. When the new meters come in, that rate structure stays the same. So we're still paying for the meter reader, even though he's not there.
But what I said is that we're able to repurpose those dollars back into utilities so we can find other efficiencies.
You just don't know what they
Give
are.
an example of that efficiency that you're trying to establish.
Underperforming circuits, how can we better spend money to get those circuits performing in a more appropriate manner? Our fleet,
How about a rebate to your customers?
Pardon me?
How about a rebate to your customers? Will that be more efficient?
Well,
John, can I just add that part of that fee is not just for meter reading, there's still actual billing costs. We still have a team that needs to take that information to bill you, but that's still in existence right now. So although you're not physically getting a meter reader out there, you're still getting the information, but there's still a cost to billing those counter. And that's going to stay in the next source.
Mayor, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question. You said that y'all have not installed analog meters for the last 10 years, which means, I'm assuming that means that everybody has a digital meter, it's just they're not smart meters that talk to each other. What percentage of our citizens in Shavano Park have analog meters? How many of us still have them?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I will say that we've got, with the 500 or so thousand, 370 some odd thousand electric AMI meters, we also have over 400 and some odd thousand OMR meters, which are digital, one-way communicator meters. So the number of analog meters across the entire system are very, very low.
Second question. There are lots of CPS trucks on the street, a lot of those are meter readers. We're in ozone non-compliance as an area. How many hours of traffic are y'all going to be taking off the road as this is implemented?
Well, it's quite a few. And actually, looking at it from a global perspective, kind of a service territory perspective, if there's an outage, instead of rolling all our trucks out at once, and let's say you and I share the same transformer, I'm home, you're not. The current system is we come in, I've called in for the outage, you can restore my power, but Mayor Warner doesn't know his power's out. Those trucks will leave. With the AMI system, those trucks will stay in place, send a signal back to the command center. If Mayor Warner's system doesn't show like it's pinging back, then we'll transition over to his house. Current system is once we fix this house and he hasn't called in, we'll leave. When he calls back, we'll have to roll everybody back out again. So there's definitely some emission savings there. Emission savings from a standpoint that we'll have less meter readers out in the field, and it just makes better for more efficiency. Yes, ma'am.
Austin Energy up in Austin charges a $10 a month opt-out fee. I was wondering why theirs is half of what you're charging. And then I have a second question. I'll let you answer that first.
So I'm sure there's a logical reason why Austin Energy decided to do theirs. Ours was based on a cost basis. I can't speak to Austin Energy, but we benchmarked ours across the United States and Texas, and we're pretty much in line, if not a little bit lower, with the exception of Austin, but I'm not sure why they did that.
CPS Energy is on record for saying to San Antonio City Council that the $20 opt-out fee was chosen because they felt that that would be high enough, it would keep a lot of people from opting out. That's just a statement. The other question I had, on one of your overheads, you showed the number of people who have established accounts with their smart meters, and they've opened a portal account, and the number of times that the portal account has been accessed. Am I remembering that right?
So 107,000 new accounts have been created.
Yes, and how many times have those accounts been accessed? Was that the other piece of information?
I don't think so, but we can go back and look
There
at
were
that
two numbers
information.
side by side.
Right.
And one was about 3 times the other?
Keep going now.
There, yeah. Right, you had it.
Right.
Okay, so the accounts created is 107,000. The web logins is, now what time period does that cover?
It says as of the end of last week.
Okay, but it goes back a couple years or just this year?
Since
or?
we launched in March of 2015.
Okay, so that tells me that on average, for each account that was created, it's been looked at 2.5 times, roughly. Is that suggesting that there's a tendency for people to be really excited about this new technology, but in practice, once they get over the novelty, they just sort of lose interest? Because that number for logins, web logins, is actually quite low. I would expect that if somebody was actually monitoring their account all the time to reduce their energy consumption, that web logins number would be substantially higher.
So I would anticipate as we continue with our deployment that active participation is going to grow. And in fact, with several focus groups that we did, over 80% of the focus group respondents said they wanted to have access to know how they're using their electricity. And so again, with 776,000 electric customers, we're trying to deliver very diverse programs that allow them the ability to see how they're using electricity.
The data don't support your statement.
We're early in our process, and I think we're ramping up to that.
May I comment on that? Because I have tried to use that portal or tried to establish access to that portal and over several years, and each time I am dissuaded because in order to access it, you must give the system either your full Texas driver's license, your full Texas driver's license number or your full social security number. Ooh. Now, CPS already has sufficient information for my social security number to set up my account. I would have been comfortable in giving them the last 4 digits as they require on their, if you call in to access your account. But I was very uncomfortable in going online and putting my full driver's license number and my full social security number to access that very important tool. And I sent them several messages about how they were discouraging people from using their systems because of that uncomfortable feeling security-wise that they required me to follow.
I hear what you're saying. I appreciate that. I think Raul Floyd is nodding his head. It's part of the protocol to capture data from a customer in order to validate who you are. I'll say this just from a perspective that we have customers who come in who claim to be so-and-so but aren't really them. And so it's merely to protect your identity versus someone trying to use your account information to either establish an account somewhere else? Or does
Like
that
it's just your account number, it's not social security number.
Or just the last 4 digits of the social security number.
Well, we could have you sit with Raul's team in the back to maybe walk you through it to maybe get more comfortable, because they are set
No,
up.
I'm not gonna give any system my full social security number and my full driver's license number. I'm just not gonna do it. It's not smart. Everybody tells you, don't do that.
I understand.
You know, and you're following a protocol that goes against all common sense and all consumer education that we're given.
Yes, sir, Sam.
I have an analog meter,
Yes, sir.
and when my smart meter is installed, I run the risk that there will be significant charges by virtue of the fact that my analog meter has not been recording properly. The analog meter is not my property, it's yours. Anticipating significant makeup charges for the past 6 months. Why is that my responsibility? Is not the maintenance of the analog meter your responsibility? And what has happened to your program for maintaining analog meters? Has it been abandoned, anticipating a smart meter coming down the line? That would make sense, but it builds up the amount of money I potentially will pay when you put in a smart meter. So explain to me who has responsibility for the maintenance of the analog meter in my house?
So the meter belongs to CPS Energy.
Yes, sir.
And as AMI has become our standard meter, the analog meter is no longer a product that we service, and this is actually part of that.
You're not servicing?
If you have an analog meter, you test correctly, you're fine. You can keep it. Yes, sir.
I'd like to follow up on this gentleman's question. I believe his question was, can you control my, what was your question again?
Can you control my?
And the answer to that has got to be yes, because these smart meters have got flash memory, and so you can reprogram them from your central office, or you can send someone around with a terminal and change the program using an infrared signal, because they all have an infrared port on the front. So I don't think John, your explanation was really true.
Why would we do that? But I think maybe I'll take this a step further to maybe answer your question a bit more thoroughly. Am I able to control appliances that are inside your home? Is that a question you might have?
More or less.
Okay.
Can you control my meter?
Well,
you can speed it up, slow it down, you can do whatever you want to with it.
No, we will not speed it up or slow it down. Now the question has come up, can I control individual appliances inside your home? Absolutely not. We will not control your refrigerator, will not control your...
Let me give you an example of where I'm getting at. I get a computer. It's a really nice computer. It's mine. I've encrypted it. It's, only I can use this thing. Yet, somebody can turn the camera on in it. They're now saying, put a hood over your computer because it can be remotely turned on. That's my question. Can you remotely do anything with my meter once the system is set in?
I will not have any control over any appliance in your home.
No, that's not the question. That's not the question.
Can I just?
We can read it.
Can I have
disconnect
this
it and read
microphone?
those
Yeah.
3 primary functions.
You just read it.
I'd like to. I'm a resident of Shavano Park, and I've studied these things a lot. And like John Marino's, the guy that was here on Thursday night, he said a lot of the capability of this system will not be implemented immediately. They're looking down the road. But the thing that you have to understand, and I'm speaking most of the people who are undecided about this or don't want one of these things, you have to understand that the smart meter is the device that enables them to do all this other stuff. And it is a powerful, powerful computer. It has flash memory. They can change the programming that is in the memory remotely. They can turn your power on and off remotely. It has an electric motor inside the meter to disconnect your power. And so they're setting up to do time of use billing and profiling of your energy use and so on and so forth. And guys like John Marino the other night, they're just doing their job. This is bigger than CPS Energy. This is a national thing. It is government intrusion into our lives. And the smart meter is the device that will enable them to do all this stuff down the line. They truthfully can say that they're not doing this now, but they certainly will be in the future.
So let me get to the gentleman's question once again. We can connect your meter, we can read your meter, we can disconnect your meter, only in the sense of normal course of business. To the question of time of use, we do have programs that are completely voluntary. We actually have a time of use rate that's available now. If you want to sign up for Peak Saver or programs that help reduce your energy bill by allowing us during peak summer months to cycle your air conditioner compressor off, those are voluntary. We will not have mandatory programs in place. Our systems right now, our programs are voluntary. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, you just said it allows you to cycle our air conditioning off?
There's a Peak Saver voluntary program that we put in a Honeywell thermostat.
Doesn't that mean you can intrude to our house and actually affect our appliances? That's what you're saying.
This is a voluntary program that if you decide to choose, they can come in and do.
I can speak to that, sir. Hello, my name is Raul Flores. I'm with customer service, and I oversee some of the demand response programs for CPS Energy. What that means is these programs are designed to curtail energy during peak demands, mainly in the summer. You know how hot it gets in San Antonio. And again, these are voluntary programs. They don't work off a smart meter. They work off of different devices. So for the smart thermostat program, it is a thermostat that can communicate back to CPS Energy to allow us to cycle off your air conditioning to help reduce your consumption. We have a secondary program called Home Manager. Again, does not work off the smart meter. We install devices to your air conditioner, to your electric water heater if you have one, and if you have a pool and pool pumps, you can also manage your pool pumps. You control those with specific portal programs to conserve energy. By the same token, voluntarily, you allow CPS Energy to curtail some of those appliances during peak demands. Again, nothing to do with our smart meter. They're separate devices that you voluntarily sign up for and allow us to do that to encourage energy conservation.
Where are these devices?
I'm sorry?
Where are the devices?
They're attached to the device. They're devices or controllers that are attached to your air conditioning unit, to your water heater, and to your pool pumps.
It's on the compressor itself?
No, it's, I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know the specification, but it's a device that's wired into your air conditioning system. It's also wired into your electric water heater. It's also wired into your pool pumps.
And it communicates by internet, does it?
It controls by an area network that is part of the program. So yes, it's a Wi-Fi. Sure, sure. Wi-Fi is everywhere, folks.
Yes, ma'am.
Sean, I think one of the concerns is that much of what you're saying in terms of the capabilities of this smart meter that, and in terms of these home management systems, right now the programs are voluntary. I think what's in this room is the concern that, first off, everything that you're saying is not really legally binding on CPS's part, but also what's voluntary today, we know can very easily become non-voluntary in the future. We know that population in this area is growing. We know that the EPA has put all sorts of rules and regulations as to capturing coal, and we know the push for renewables is very real, and a lot of money is being spent in that. You're going to have to pay for a battery system in order to capture the electricity so that we have some at night. Renewables are unreliable. They're not there a lot of time when you need them. And so what is voluntary today, as we move forward where population is growing and resources are being stretched, could potentially at some point be non-voluntary. And I think that's a concern that I feel in the room right now.
I certainly hear what you're saying. It is not our position, nor has it been discussed to be our position at any time in the future that these programs would become mandatory. So as much as I can say today, and in the future, we don't plan on having a mandatory time of use rate for our customers. That is not what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to allow you an opportunity, especially in this forum, to decide, is the AMI meter the right meter for you, or would you like to stay with your analog meter? I think now might be a good time to transition to our subject matter experts. We've got a number of people here that are here to talk about specifically about the meters, about power quality, about customer service, about opt-out, and about our network and its encryption. So I encourage you to make your way around. Myself and Kenny Gunn, here in the front in the blue shirt, will certainly act as ambassadors getting you in the right direction. I'm sorry, say again, sir?
Yeah. Can you have the microphone? Sure.
I'm Peter Wolverton. I live here in Shavano Park too. One of the things that, as I sat here listening, a smart meter may be a good idea, may not be a good idea. But one of the things that troubles me is it's touted as something that adds to the efficiency. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But it seems to me that it would be a better selling job if you could address how we're going to save on our utility bills.
Certainly. So the question is how are we going to save on our utility bill? Very, very easily, we'll maintain low rates. So again, talking about this group that's been stood up to capture those efficiencies and repurpose those dollars in other areas of our organization. Because remember, we're not just a meter reading company, a retail company. We're a fully integrated utility. We have a fleet of power plants with over 6,000 megawatts of power. We've got a transmission and distribution system with thousands of miles of power lines. We're a gas utility with thousands of miles of pipe. And we have a number of customers. We have 770,000 electric customers and 300,000+ gas customers. So every dollar that we can squeeze out of that sponge to save money, to repurpose, and to keep our rates as low as possible is where we'll find the most basic bottom line efficiency.
But repurposing, I understand, repurposing means you're going to take meter readers and give them another job, which they don't have now.
Maybe.
I hear you're going to repurpose this and repurpose that. How about returning the savings to the customer? That seems to me to be the best idea. Well, I haven't heard a thing about that. Why?
Well, I think you're not
maintain low rates. If we have low rates now and you can save money, why don't you rebate the customer?
I appreciate your point, sir. I'll be happy to talk with you a little bit further. I'm not dismissing you. I do want to share a number here that Mayor Warner had. Number of current analog and digital meters in Shavano Park. Analog 1,100 and digital a little under 2,300.
To this gentleman's point, you mentioned you have a handful of meter readers, but your meter readers are contractors and not CPS employees. So presumably, when you install all these meters, there's going to be no further contract with Corex or whoever reads your meters. Is that correct?
No, not necessarily. We will still have CPS Energy employed meter readers that we'll need to deploy for our commercial accounts, certain residential accounts, and certain things that are beyond a simple walk to house to house to house employee or contractor. Yes, ma'am.
You have referred several times to the fact that you have low electricity rates. But I think all of us in the room know that it's not just the electricity rate that's the concern in terms of our bills, it's all the adjustments that are added on top of it. There's no transparency in billing on any of those. We have no idea how you calculate those or how those might be manipulated down the line. And I think that's another concern, because your rates have to be approved by the City of San Antonio, City Council. But all those other adjustments are just slapped on there, and they're significant, especially during the May to, is it September, October timeframe. So that's just a comment.
All our rates are available online for viewing by the public and on cpsenergy.com. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I have my figures correct, but I'm pretty sure that from the smart meter profits, there's $240 million contributed to San Antonio city budget. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And so I'll let you go through.
Talking about profit, let's talk about, that is contributed to the San Antonio city budget from the sales of smart meters.
So in 1943, the city of San Antonio purchased SAPSCO, which is the predecessor of CPS Energy. It was a power, distribution, retail, and transit company. We sold off the transit company, like I said, for $34 million. And think about that, that was a pretty large investment at the height of World War II. As part of that sale, and the city of San Antonio was guaranteed up to 14% of that net revenue. So for the most part, it is a dividend payment, a city return. Not to say that we don't, and we have 31 suburban cities in our service territory, and within each one of those suburban cities, we have existing franchise agreements that we pay the cities the ability to operate within their right-of-way. So it's not like we're not paying Shavano Park, we are paying a fee to Shavano Park to operate.
You are paying a fee to Shavano Park?
Yes.
Is that percentage?
4.5%.
4.5?
Yes. So let's go ahead and transition to the subject matter experts. And we'll continue to have one-on-ones and discussions with everybody. So thank you very much for attending today.